this Clippers thing, there's just something seems to be off about them. It's whether it's the chemistry stuff, it's on the court, whether it's the lack of games they played together. So we're pumped to bring in Sam Amick. He's a senior writer at The Athletic, and he wrote the piece basically behind the Clippers' chemistry issues, talking to multiple sources within within the team. So first and foremost, Sam, thanks for hopping on Scal Pals today. What's going on?
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate you.
Let's start here. I mean, obviously, like this is ever since January 4th when Montrezl Harrell kind of came out after that game and said what he said, talked about some of the potential locker room issues. There were all sorts of rumors about, are there major problems behind the scenes that we don't necessarily know about? Was that just the tip of the iceberg? What can you tell us about the issues behind the scenes in the Clippers locker room? Is it all based on, Kawhi, load management, the way they play? Like, what are the main problems there for the Clippers?
So to me, guys, there's a lot of layers to it. I mean, as Scal can attest, locker rooms are very complicated places at times. And Montrez, and certainly I think he probably wishes he could put the genie back in the bottle as far as that one night, January 4th, when he says a few things to the media, because he did pull the curtain back a little bit on some of the inner dynamics. Our read of the room essentially is that it's a combination of everything from, like, the macro to me is the combination of old and new. You had this Clippers team last year. They win 48 games. They're gritty. They're overachievers. They're out there every single night. These are the guys that, to make it relatable to the kind of the working man, it's like these are 60-hour, 70-hour-a-week type players last season. And then you pull off the summertime stunner. You get Kawhi Leonard, you get Paul George. And all of a sudden, the program is going to be extremely different, and with obvious reason. Now the goals are different. Now you're trying to win a championship. Kawhi, in particular, has got the most unique approach health-wise in the history of the game. And again, I don't question his approach by any means, because everything I know about his situation, it's based in the medicals, it's based in science, but it has been an adjustment for some of the guys who were there before. And it's just it's an integration. One of the people we talked to within the organization described it as a funky collision. And listen, it sounds fun. We went to great lengths to make it very clear in the story. Like, this is not one of those situations, from what we're being told, where guys are snipping at each other left and right. There's dislike. It's not that. It is just an uncomfortable at times combination, something they're working through. And even from January 4th to now, you've seen how they played. I think they've made some good steps in the right direction, but there's a lot going on there.
Sam, explain this one to me. As a player, I loved it when dudes were out. I loved it. Give me a chance to play. If I was a bench player that didn't play, I'd add 10 to 15 minutes to my day. If I was a starter, I'd add 5 to 7 shots to my plate. Montrezl Harrell is a guy who has benefited from guys sitting out. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA. If I was in control of everything NBA, I would put him in the All-Star game. Why are people upset that people are sitting out?
I don't know, Scal, that's part of it for sure. I think I was trying to make things super relatable, especially for listeners, but it feels like a job where you get a new coworker, you like what you've heard about them, you've heard they're super talented, and you might even know they make 3 times the money you do, and that's fine because apparently they're worth it. But then you don't get that chance to vibe with them in the office, on the floor, and that's something we heard early on. For one, Doc Rivers doesn't practice much, and so getting some of those wrinkles ironed out basketball-wise early on, it was a slow process. You had injury stuff, Paul George being out. I think overall the Clippers are 5-6 at this point when Kawhi doesn't play. So, in a vacuum, I hear what you're saying about Montrez. And we should probably mention, too, as far as just different factors and dynamics, that Montrez is going to be a free agent this summer. His numbers are off the charts, and there has been a feeling at different times in that locker room that, it's like he's, like any other guy who's going to be up, he's going to try to get paid. How does that fit in within the team concept? And, again, at their worst, there's occasionally competing agendas, and they're just trying to figure it out. The time together, though, in the room is where I think it's been kind of a slow build.
Sam, in your piece, you talk about how Doc Rivers, basically the day after, basically reamed the team out and called out Montrezl Harrell and for letting this stuff get out. He wanted to keep everything in-house. Where do you think Doc stands on this? Because obviously it seems like he's between a rock and a hard place where, when you sign Kawhi, obviously Kawhi takes your team to another level, but you kind of have to play by Kawhi's rules in a way. So he can't maybe do all the things that he wants to do with the team. He has to sort of ingratiate him slowly into the team, and that might come at the expense of ruining some of the good vibes that was in the locker room before that. So where do you think Doc stands in all this?
I mean, I think he feels pretty good about where they're at. If I had to guess, they're actually at shoot-around right now in Miami. And, whether it's this morning or tonight, my strong prediction is he's going to make some strong comments, saying he doesn't agree with the tone of the piece. I was in touch with Doc yesterday. One specific anecdote that he denied was our reporting that, the two walkthroughs had been impacted by Kawhi's voice, as far as like other players felt like they were about to walk through and Kawhi decided they didn't want to do it, or he didn't want to do it that day. And so that's what happened. And so Doc is trying to make sure that none of these little yarns become something that, come unraveled even more. And that's his style. He's a championship coach who is, he commands the room, and he's always been that way. And when it comes to the media, he's fascinating because he's a media darling in one respect, incredibly accommodating. It will spend more time than he needs to in the traditional media settings, but when it comes to the stuff on the inside, he's kind of a he likes to keep things in house, and he doesn't like it at all when stuff gets out, and so there's a push and pull there. But I think, listen, these are, like we say at the end of the story, these are champagne problems. These guys are sitting here with an extremely good record in a good spot, and I do think for Kawhi's teammates, that if they're smart, they do need to go ahead. It's not hard to look back at what happened last season. There were times with the Raptors where some guys in that locker room, they just weren't used to this kind of a rhythm with what came with Kawhi, and we saw where that ended up. And, that's their message with the Clippers right now to their group is please get with the program. It's going to pay off at the end. We know it's a little different, but it's going to be worth it.
Yeah, Sam, that's what I want to echo, because I was in Toronto last year early, and a lot of people were like, I don't know, man. Everyone's different. Everyone's upset. DeMar DeRozan was traded. Kawhi doesn't practice. He decides when he wants to sit out, and it all worked out. But let me ask you, when I'm reading your story, I think of this. Rich Paul represents Montrezl Harrell. And LeBron, obviously, and Montrezl Harrell is a hard-nosed guy. Is there any way that LeBron got to Montrezl Harrell and said, hey, man, why are they prolonging his career where they're not thinking about your career? And did that start this whole thing? Because to me, I read between the lines when I read stories. I want to know the why, not the what. So is there any way that Rich Paul is in Montrezl Harrell's ear and saying, look at our guy LeBron, he's playing every single night, and he's an all-time great, but they're just worried about Kawhi Leonard's future?
Listen, Scal, for one, I love the fact that you're so good at reading between the lines. I'm the same way. I read other people's coverage, and you can sit there and essentially have a different filter. That is a hell of a point, and I think all I can say, I certainly cannot speak to did LeBron get in Montrezl's ear. These things matter, though, right? Like there's different camps. Some camps have more power and influence than others. I wrote a piece last week, and this relates to your question, about Kyle Kuzma and, what's his future with the Lakers. In that piece, I mentioned that at one point Kyle considered going to Rich Paul to be his agent instead of ultimately going, I believe, to Leon Rose, and how if he had picked LeBron's agent, maybe the power dynamics for his future within the Lakers ecosystem would have been different. And so, the thing with Montrez and LeBron, it is fascinating that those things bleed together a little bit, because I guess you're talking 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago at this point, and this is in the story, you had that back and forth where LeBron made his comment saying that if he's healthy, if he's ready, he's going to play. So he becomes, for this season, the anti-load management guy. And then Doc kind of fired back and said, that the Lakers basically do whatever LeBron wants. And you had kind of this cat fight on that front in L.A. And, within all of that, you've got, kind of that wrinkle with Montrez and Rich and LeBron that you mentioned. So I can't speak to it, specifically, but I think that element is fair to look at.
We'll get you out on this, Sam. I made the point yesterday, I know there have been plenty of great teams that have coasted regular seasons, but I'm hard-pressed to think of a team that had come together this soon and didn't have sort of the chemistry built up that blatantly did not care about the regular season the way that the Clippers are sort of treating it. What do you like? How much of an impact do you think this will have? All these guys sitting out, maybe even some of the locker room dynamic. How much of an impact do you think that'll have on a potential finals run?
Hard to tell because it's funny. I mentioned the Raptors, kind of lesson, that takeaway that we can't forget. And I mean it, and it did happen. I also kind of sit there and go, okay. I mean, they also had a pretty fortuitous ending to the finals. You had injuries galore. You had, the shot why that if it's 3 bounces instead of 4, is it a different ending? And then, then does Kawhi essentially have less juice when it comes to, this Clippers situation? Do you follow his lead and trust in the process that much if the outcome was different? So I don't know where this all ends up. I mean, I know that there's a bunch of really good teams that on any given night are certainly capable of taking the Clippers out. So, I mean, right now, they would not be my title favorites. They certainly would be on the short list. And listen, when May and June comes, and if Kawhi's healthy and he looks like the dude that he was at the end of last year, that's going to be a tough out.
Can I follow up that question?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
How come? Let me just follow up. Why are they not your title favorites?
I don't even know who is, Scal. I mean, I'm a sucker for I am a sucker for chemistry. I'm a sucker for the ethos of a team. And, like last year, I enjoyed writing about the Bucks. And listen, it didn't work out well for them, but like they played with a joy and kind of a togetherness that reminded me of the Warriors in the beginning of their run. So with that type of thing combined with good old-fashioned raw talent, I'd probably be looking at the Lakers right now because they have what appears to be, a pretty unique vibe going in that locker room that is so different from what they had last year. They've got my attention for the moment. And to be honest, though, I mean, I say that I just can't overlook the Bucks. I know everybody wants to pick on Chris Middleton and talk about how Giannis needs more of a second star. Those dudes are on a historic pace. They're still on pace to win 70-plus games. They are one of the most dominant teams in the history of the NBA. So I think those two squads for me right now would probably be ahead of the Clippers.
Hey, Sam, here's your next story piece. Whoever the Lakers add will be the determination if they win the championship or not. That's
Sure.
Your next story.
Yeah. Who's that going to be? The popular names, we got the Darren Collisons, guys like that. Any thoughts, Cal, on who might be coming their way?
Well, I will say that Darren Collison would be a great addition. If they don't add anybody, they will lose. So put that in your story.
Okay. Sure. Wow. I hear you.
All right. Hey,
you
he's
heard
Sam
it here
Amick.
First.
Exactly. There you go. He's giving you story tips. Sam Amick, senior writer at The Athletic. Make sure you check out his piece if you haven't checked out it already. All the great details in there. Sam, appreciate you hopping on Scal Pals today. Love to get you back in the future.
You got it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.